Good evening. It is Monday, March 25th, and I call the Maple Plain City Council meeting to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am looking for a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
Second.
second by Fay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. First item of business is a consent agenda. On that this month, we have March accounts payable, City Council business meeting minutes from February 25th, Meadows of Maple Plain letter of credit reduction number 3, and 2019 pay equity report. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Fay,
Second.
second by Rhoda. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item of business is our administrative reports, and we will start with our city engineer.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In your packet is our monthly report, and there's been a variety of different things that were worked on this past month, including various quantity and discussions with the contractor on liquidated damages for the 2018 street improvements. We worked on plans and specifications for the Veterans Memorial Park. Worked with staff on some of the different grant paperwork and submittals that are needed for the DNR Outdoor Recreational Grant, and also reviewed the revised set of plans for the Gateway of Maple Plain project and prepared a memo, and also that letter of credit reduction for Meadows. Yes, so a variety of different things, and I can answer any questions the council may have at this time.
Any questions for engineer? Thank you. Next, we'll hear from our city planner, and I believe our administrator is going to fill in.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Our city planner, Mark Cultus, is on vacation, so he is unable to attend tonight's meeting. Good for him, well deserved. Some things that have kept Mark busy, though, over the last month would include review of final construction documents and final plat for the Elam senior housing project. Multiple correspondence with different properties about possible developments here within town. One is for a house for disabled adults. Has also been working on playground pricing and design for Veterans Memorial Park. Attending multitude of staff meetings and fielding calls from different residents regarding possible zoning projects. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions pertaining to the planning report.
Any questions regarding the planning report? Okay, hearing none, we'll continue moving on. Next, we'll have West Hennepin Public Safety Report from our police chief.
Honorable Mayor and Council members, before you is the February 2019 activity report. Just to go through the month, we handled year-to-date a total of 879 complaints, 552 were in Independence, and 275 were in Maple Plain. Just to kind of highlight the stats, you can kind of see a dramatic decrease in traffic in Maple Plain and even in Independence through February, and just record year snowfall, bad weather, all those things do contribute on whether or not the officers are able to go out and do traffic enforcement, or if there's any traffic violations to begin with. So that's kind of the gist of just the numbers of why they're lower. And I think we could all remember what February was like for most all of us here.
We're at 46 inches of snow?
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was top 5 or top 3 for.
Snowiest in Minnesota history.
Yeah,
It was
that's
the the
what I heard.
snowiest. Okay,
In history.
I missed that part, but I knew it was
You're probably
right up
next
there.
to go.
I don't know. Maybe in. Yeah, maybe. Just to highlight a few cases. Talk about a shed fire, February 8th, 2019, the 400 block County Road 110. I think we all know whose property that is, and the Maple Plain Fire Department did an outstanding job of putting that fire out as quickly as they did. It's good to see the troops rally on a negative 15 degree below day. I know it's not fun to fight a fire trying to spray water when it's that cold, and the Maple Plain Public Works, Independence Public Works, all rallied to try to get extra salt and sand down on County Road 110. Yes, County Road 110 is a county road, but needed the help immediately to try to get traction for the firefighters for putting water in the tank, and it was a good all-around effort. Nobody got hurt. It's just property, and they did a nice job on putting that fire out. And obviously, it's not suspicious or anything, and we don't have the Hennepin County investigator full report on it yet. They seem to take quite a while to get that stuff back to us, but because it was related to some of the people on the Maple Plain Fire Department, Loretto Fire actually handled the investigation, so there wouldn't be a conflict of interest on that. So they'll give it to Loretto, and then I will get that from them. Burglary report in the 3900 block, County Road 19 in Independence. Just one of our local churches had a fundraiser the night before and forgot to lock the door that everybody goes in and out of, and somebody broke in that night, walked through the open door, and went to the office door and pried open the door and took the cash. They left the checks, but they took the cash that night, and so we've been working with not only that church but other churches that it's time to really take investment in cameras, security systems. I know we've all been trusting and throughout our lives, but it's time that some of these businesses and churches even get cameras and alarms on their buildings. We had a disorderly conduct case in the February 14th, Valentine's Day, 1500 block of Budd Avenue. We responded to a report of a domestic assault occurring. The building was wide open, and we could see a female punching a male, looking through the building and into the windows and yelling very loudly. So a 51-year-old female was cited for disorderly conduct, and they were separated for the night. Highway 12 in Budd, we had a warrant arrest on a 49-year-old male. Had a Wright County Sheriff's Office felony warrant for 4th-degree criminal sexual assault. Some of you may have seen it in the paper. It was an Independence resident who committed that crime in Wright County. And we had actually been looking for that person for a couple of days, and just by chance he drove by one of our officers in Maple Plain, so they made the stop and made the arrest. February 20th, unfortunately, we dealt with, at the Maple Plain Motel, a 5300 block of Highway 12. We responded to a 26-year-old male unconscious with his girlfriend in the room. Long story short is there's a death investigation in that particular residence in that room, and preliminary investigation shows that it was a suicide. We did perform life-saving efforts on that male. We were able to transport him to the hospital. However, he did not survive that. So still waiting on the final results of that case from the medical examiner. We had a theft on February 22nd in the 1200 block of Maple Plain. We've had a lot of rental units getting broke in this year. It seems a little bit high compared to other years. They go and cut the locks off the storage units, open them up, steal what they want to steal, and then they'll put a different lock on it. So people driving by, the police driving by, we drive by usually every day or every night, and if we see a cut lock, that's a red flag. Hey, call the people. But there's obviously been a break-in. Well, they're smart enough now. They cut the lock, take the lock with them, steal the stuff, put a lock back on it. And as everybody knows, you don't go to your storage unit most likely every day. So then a week or two or even a month goes by, they go there and they can't get into their storage unit because it's not their lock, and then they find that stuff has been stolen. Had a real increase of those throughout last year in 2018. We did make a couple of arrests on some of those cases. We do think we have arrested and charged our main suspect in those. He lived at Bryant Wood Apartments, one of those apartments there. We did some warrants and search warrants there, and Orono Police did a search warrant on his garage as well and found a bunch of stolen property. So we're hopeful that that was kind of the primary suspect in those, but they tend to evolve and keep going. Again, in Maple Plain and in Independence, both of our, well, not both, there's one more north of Highway 12. They don't have cameras. They don't have any cameras, no security systems. We've been really working with the property owners on both to get cameras on there, and I think we're gonna get that done this spring. I think they've realized that how important that is for us in our investigation to identify suspects, so. And we're working on that. Community Relations, February 22nd. We attended the celebration at the Rainbow Park Warming House, kind of kicking off that. They did a tremendous job in there. It looks really cool in there. I know I stopped by a couple times. I wasn't able to make this celebration, but I stopped in and just took a peek during the day on my own. They did a really nice job, so I hope we can keep it that way. Looks great. I'll tell you this one on February 23rd, just because it benefited Maple Plain. It was in Independence. Dad called, couldn't get a hold of his older teenage children. Mom and Dad were out of town, and the kids didn't answer the phone early in the morning, and send the police over there to check on their kids. Lots of cars parked there overnight, a bunch of them on the street. It had snowed that night and that day. It was 3-4 inches of snow. So the officer woke the kids up and told them, hey, you got to get a hold of your mom and dad. In the process of that, he then started writing tickets for all the overnight parking, the seasonal parking restriction at Independence. The parents, 3 of the 5 parents, called me and said, hey, is there anything we can work out instead of a $50 administrative ticket? The kids didn't know. They weren't from the area. And I said, sure. I'll give you $10 credit for every fire hydrant in Maple Plain that you dig out. So for how much snow there was, I think that was a steal on our part. So they did 25 of them through the help of Nicole. She sent me the map. I showed them on the map which fire hydrants we needed done, and the kids went out and shoveled 25 of those out. So I dismissed all those tickets in lieu of labor. So they were happy for it. So, and just kind of highlight for the month of February, we had 36 vehicle in the ditch calls. So that kind of relates to what we were talking about earlier. 1 personal injury crash, 31 property damage crashes, 2 hit and runs, and 2 property damage hits deers. And then we had 136 citation verbal warrants or traffic stops during that time frame for both cities. So happy to answer any questions that you have, but that's kind of our February report. Hopefully spring is coming, and it's here soon.
You had a busy month.
Yeah, it was just, it's another busy month in March, so. But moving forward,
Any questions for the chief?
I have a comment. Chief, when I look at your 3 years of activities, 17 through 19, it's, except for a couple of hiccups, looks like month after month, activity is down. Is that a good thing?
I think so. I think there's a combination of, back in 2000, the blue line is 17. So that's kind of about the time we went, newer officers, we got to full staff. It seems like they're a little bit more like trying to make a name for themselves, get out there. They're new to the area. They want to be a little bit more proactive and active. So I think that kind of was the number, some of the numbers in 2017. And the more patrol activity that you do, people tend to be a little bit more obedient. So in 2017, going into 18, they saw a lot of traffic enforcement out there. So then that reduces people committing that. So then there's that reduction. And then, that kind of fades over time. I mean, it's interesting you say that because my email today to the crew was, hey, here's the numbers and here's what we're doing or not doing. Let's try to see if we can get back to proactive community policing with the community. It's exactly how you put it. What was it? So I tried to look at it, and that's kind of my perception of it. I also think in there, too, is there's a lot of extra stuff that seems like it's taken longer and more time. There's more police training. There's more patrol on lines. There's more in-depth investigations probably than we did years ago that we're letting officers run with. Citizens Academy, community events that kind of occur, not so much like Maple Plain days or Party in the Park, but there's a lot of bike events that we're trying to organize and coordinate that kind of go through the city, and they just take up time. So I think there's a combination of both there. So we can do better, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, I don't think so.
I just think it's a combination of both. We worked hard 2-3 years ago, And now we're seeing people are a little bit more obedient in regards to things, and we're a little bit busier with other activities as well. So,
Thank you. Next report is Public Works.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Public Works, for the month of March, well, in the beginning, was a lot of snow plowing and snow removal, opening up some catch basins as the weather's warming up. That has everyone a little bit, it's just a little bit nicer seeing that sun out throughout the day, but opening up catch basins was a big deal. A little bit of pothole patching. A lot of that too will happen, a lot of pothole patching after weight restrictions too. That's usually when we get the hot box out and really get a lot of work done there. They addressed the sanitary sewer manhole that was underwater in the creek east of the Wink buildings. So we had a tremendous amount of flooding that was going then into sewer manhole that we had. So that was an I&I infiltration issue that we had to correct. We did some vehicle maintenance on their Mack single axle truck, the Kubota, and the New Holland skid steer. Installed spring road weight restrictions, and I can tell you that Public Works has been doing a really good job working with West Hennepin. I can only sing the praises of both Public Works and West Hennepin for communicating with vehicles that they see that are over the road. Last few days, this morning I heard one too. Public Works is in communication over there using their radios with the officers to say, hey, I see a vehicle here, it looks like it might be over the limit. You know, they check into with staff to make sure it was a permit pulled for this vehicle, was it not? And so I think early on, at least for me, I don't know, I've noticed there's been a few of them that we've, that's already occurred where we find vehicles breaking our road weight restrictions, and Public Works and West Hennepin are working together. Nicole's doing a lot of the administrative work in terms of issuing that permit. But everything from there has been really West Hennepin, which has been it's been a good deal so far. We've arranged some street sweeping for the end of the month. Hopefully then we don't have any snow is kind of my idea, and then we can get that done. Receiving some quotes for wood chips at Bryant Wood and Rainbow Park Playgrounds. So I know a number of years ago insurance companies came out and looked and said we need to remove some P-rock. So we're trying to get some wood chip quotes too for that area. Quotes for weed control for Rainbow Park also popped up. These were some suggestions too that came out of the Park Commission that we're looking to get some quotes for on that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions pertaining to the Public Works March monthly report.
Any questions? I did have one, Bobby, and do you know if staff was able to look at the pothole at 19 and Bryant Street that we had talked about?
Yeah, I know it was brought up. I'll have to follow up again on that. I know that I had mentioned that specifically to Public Works. They said they were going to check it out.
Okay, great.
So, but yeah, no, we'll take a look at that again if that hasn't been addressed. I don't know.
I don't know if it has.
Okay,
I haven't been over there in
Sure,
months, so that's why
sure.
I asked.
perfect.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, next report will be city administration.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. City admin's been busy with this month with a few projects. We've been working on potential development opportunities throughout the city, and I know I say that every month, but it's true, we are. Received some positive, uplifting news that hopefully we have some other developments coming before the City Council shortly. Tonight you'll find on the agenda a developer's agreement with Haven Homes, so we'll get into that. Drafting grants for Veterans Memorial Park. There's also some of that going to be discussed tonight. Logistics and communication materials for the special election coming up. So the city did send out a one-page flyer that went out in the mail Friday that kind of outlined that a little bit. Spring newsletter is coming out shortly. I believe the end of the first quarter for utilities will be read at the end of this month, so end of this week, early next week, and we'll send out a newsletter with that. Started drafting parks capital improvement maintenance plans. It's been a work in progress for a while in there, but we're making progress on it. Trying to keep the Park Commission up to date on what's all going on there. So Nicole attended a Step 2 at kickoff meeting, which I thought was really great. We'll be talking with City Council coming up about doing a kickoff event within the city of Maple Plain. Really communicate step to it. It's a great event that happens in May to get residents active within the community. And then staff has been working diligently on the staffing report and gathering data requested by City Council. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions pertaining to the March monthly report.
Any questions for Administrator, the administration? All right, hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve all administrative reports A through E as read and or submitted.
So moved.
Moved by Broda,
Second?
second by Cahill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next, we'll move on to new business. First is Resolution 19-0325-01, DNR Outdoor Recreation Grant Application for Veterans Memorial Park.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Staff is, Mark, myself, and Dan, been working on a application for the DNR Outdoor Recreation Grant for improvements to submit by the end of the month. This is a 50-50 match grant, and we have been working together to put together cost estimates and work on the grant using the city's already budgeted funds toward our matching amount. We've been able, after taking a look, we've decided to put the following components as a part of the application, which is the walkways, lighting and trees, the great lawn, grading of the whole area, the band shell, playground equipment, electricity and signage. And then I'll just kind of touch base on some of those. So this picture that's up on the screen right now is a rendering of a band shell. We would be adding a wall component to that. This is a prefabricated band shell shelter that we would add our own walling to, so that will save money by doing it that way. This is just a drawing of what the band shell would look like. As a part of the DNR grant, everything needs to be ADA accessible. So if we were to raise that up in this case, then we'd have to build a ramp and otherwise. So we decided to go with this route for the grant, but we added some fun embellishments with the maple leaves on the posts, and again, will be a separate part of it will be adding those walls onto the band shell. This is just kind of some more details on the memorial part, but that is not a part of the application itself. It's not a qualifiable expense for the grant. So we took that into account when putting what the city's matching funds are going to be for just kind of minus that Veterans Memorial portion out of there. So we're still going to be able to do that, just not through the grant. This is a picture of signage. It's actually I believe it's limestone with a kind of a metal plate on the front. So that's just something that we're looking at. We're looking at 2 signs, one kind of toward each parking lot. This is just a rendition of some playground equipment. A change since then is that we wanted to add more swings. I suggested putting on another bay of swings to have 6 swings instead of 4. And one will be accessible for sure. And a part of this playground too, each component will have a concrete ramp area to make it accessible to get into each playground area. So those are a couple of pictures of that. I know, and then we're going to be adding sidewalks around each component and sidewalks through it. So on the attachment I put on your spots, it kind of just shows what we're submitting, with the yellow being a part of this grant, and the green being facilities that are to remain in the park. So just to kind of give a visual of what we are going to be putting into the grant. And then there's also some cost estimates with each part of the grant. So with the grant project, it's a total of, we're estimating $473,000 with a $236 $8,550 portion with this, from the city, as well as requesting that from the DNR. And then we're taking into account the Veterans Memorial and some indirect costs that are not eligible for funding, to make sure that we stay within the money that we have set aside for improvements to this park. So if you have any questions.
So, I think one thing that needs to be noted here of probably, just one thing real quick that came to my mind too is that, so you see that the subtotal for the city cost is a little bit higher here. And part of that is just so that we can get more bang for our buck through the grant process. So the one thing that does stand out is that the city, we're not looking to receive bids on these projects yet until we know what comes back from the grant element. So it just made sense to throw more of these elements in there on a 50-50 grant match to get more for our dollar, stretch it a longer way here. And what you have before you too is a resolution.
Yep, so the resolution is a part of the grant application. I'm just saying that the council approves of us submitting this grant. And kind of what Bobby was getting at is that we would find out about, if we're awarded this grant, we'd find out this summer. Our estimate is around July. So we would, Dan is continuing to do, the specs for the portions that we've decided with the funding that the city already has. But we would want to wait to go out to bid because of those components are a part of the grant application as the city's matching portion. So we just would want to wait to bid on that. And we did find out through speaking with Stantec's grant specialist that she thought that, bids would probably be better in the fall anyways. And suggested that we don't go out to bid for anything because until we find out if we're chosen for the project.
Well, I think it's great to explore creative funding options and to see what's out there, and this would be a huge help to the city financially. Just clarifying that the building plans that are in here are still at a conceptual level with this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's still ability to flex things.
Absolutely.
And there's more discussion. Okay.
Absolutely.
And that was mine too. I just wanted to clarify in particular the band shell, because I know we had talked about that being a raised platform for the movies and the concerts, and I understand we would need to add the ramp, but I think it's an important component, so I just want to make sure by approving the resolution, we're not taking that off the table.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
And Dan, your probable cost estimates are, you feel pretty accurate?
Yeah, I know the one thing that, we usually bid things in like, the winter or very early in the spring. So this will be something like, probably in August, or maybe even a September bid. So I think that's the one thing that, some years contractors are looking for work in the fall. If you remember our project that we did on Bud, that didn't start up until later, and it fit right into their schedule. So it's, you always, as an engineer, you always get a little nervous bidding things, not in like January, February, but it's still something that we have contingencies in there, so we hope that those will cover any adjustments that a contractor might put.
So we, if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were going to move relatively quickly on this from a bidding stage and giving contractors the ability to, to do it. You're saying it's the grant application submittal that has pushed our bidding process out to the fall. Okay, then, is it, me in dollars, is it realistic, 4 poles and a 24 by 10-foot roof is $30,000, your estimate?
Yeah, I think that, similar to the playground equipment, we get a copy, or we get information from these people that actually sell the prefabricated materials and actually install it. And so it's, based on that, when it actually comes down to bidding, then we'll see, but that's their estimate that they provided
I'm looking at
That's
only
not
a
a
rough.
lot for $30,000, man.
We're in the wrong business.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Is the funding for this all or nothing, or could they choose to like piecemeal it if they think we ask too much?
I mean, it's possible. I've seen that happen with grant projects before, but you know, I guess that's how I would answer. It's possible.
It's possible, okay.
It's possible.
Yeah.
For
Now,
sure.
this is the dean, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, that just piggybacking on that was my own kind of my thought process too. Is this a really big ask? Do you think it's gonna?
No, I think
I don't know what kind of money they have for this
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
I think it's appropriate.
Okay. I think it'd be great if we got it.
Yeah,
don't
I
get me
think
wrong,
in
but
historically years past, the city has received grant dollars in the past. Not maybe quite to this level, but you know, substantial dollars before. It's kind of one of those things. You won't know until you ask,
Right.
so you might as well ask
Okay.
and see what happens.
And the DNR likes parks.
They do.
Mhm.
So I think anytime a smaller town, and this is my own opinion, I think anytime a smaller town such as Maple Plain ourselves are investing the amount of dollars we are as a city into a project of this magnitude, I think that tells a lot to these people reviewing these grants. I think it shows how committed the city is to providing upgrades to their park here, and I think there's some value in that when people read these grants. So.
We looked at two. There was a Hennepin County grant too. Did that
That's-
get submitted
Mhm.
as well?
Yes.
We didn't need a resolution for that one.
Yep.
Correct.
Staff took care of it.
But that's done.
Yeah.
That's submitted.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that. Any other questions? All right, so then I'm looking for a motion to approve Resolution 19-0325-01, the DNR Outdoor Recreation Grant Application for Veterans Memorial Park.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
second.
second by Broda. And this is a resolution, so it'll be roll call vote.
Councilmember Cahill.
Aye.
Councilmember Fay.
Aye.
Mayor Moskowski.
Aye.
Councilmember Broda.
Aye.
The ayes have it 4-0.
Next item of business is another resolution, Resolution 19-0325-02, a conditional use permit and site plan review to allow a multifamily dwelling at 5300 Highway 12.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm here for Mark tonight. We brought this to Planning Commission at their March meeting. This is for a site plan review to turn 5300 Highway 12 into a multi-use or multifamily apartments, as well as a conditional use permit for the garage portion. It's a requirement in the mixed use to have conditional use permits for accessory structures. So the breakdown, the proposed apartments will be 5 apartments. 5 apartments will be 16 total bedrooms with 3 units of 4-bedroom apartments, 1 unit of 3-bedroom apartment, and 1 1-bedroom apartment. And the layout, the floor plans are shown in your packet. Right, this is a picture of the existing building. What they're looking to do for the exterior renovations is relatively minor. They're including painting the building and then adding some hardy board and brick hardy board to the building, and then the garage portion will be hardy board siding and brick accent. They have also, with the garage structure, it is proposed to keep the same characteristics as the primary structure, and it is unlikely that an exact brick match can be made between the attached garage structure and the original building. But they are looking to match it as close as possible, as it is a historic building, so that's something that's a little tricky there. Some other items to note, they are doing, parking requirements will be met. They're doing let's find this picture. 5 single-unit garage parking spots on the east side, and on the west side there will be a storage section that is can either be used by the tenants of the apartment or the owner, but it cannot be rented out to anybody outside of the building. So the parking spaces, they'll also have, I believe it is 18 parking spots and 1 accessible spot. They're all doing it to the east of the building and taking away the parking in the front portion, which city staff finds favorable. As a part of it too, they're adding a landscaping plan with trees and other shrubs onto the east, and keeping in as many of the existing trees in the property. Since we've seen it at Planning Commission, one of the suggestions was to add some landscaping in the front by the signage, which they have added in the updated landscaping plan. Another component is the trash will be enclosed within the west portion of the detached storage building. So it will be enclosed. So just a couple of things when we brought it to Planning Commission. We talked about particularly the west, the property to the west and the east, and the kind of blurry lines as far as the property lines goes, and that entrance and exit. The owner from the other property was at the meeting and shared their support for the project. And one that came out of the discussion is just to kind of clear up the property lines as a requirement for the conditional use. There was also questions about having a sidewalk to the ramp, which is on the west side of the building, that was incorporated in. And also there was talked about the signage, we talked about the landscape plan, and one thing that we are recommending for this landscape plan is just to make sure to include plants that can withstand winter and salt and all those other types of things, to just make sure that's year-round screening. The other pieces that Planning Commission added is that I just wanted to make sure that the site is in compliance with stormwater and drainage, specifically on the northeast corner of the property. So just a condition is to make sure that this plan is compliant with the watershed district. They included that accessible sidewalk that the Planning Commission wanted to add to the ramp. And then the other component is the parking lot. It's recommended that Stantec, our city engineer, looks at the parking lot and makes to see and determines whether it is able to withstand or accommodate the use of multi-use multifamily residential, and then based on that, they will need to make any changes to the parking lot that are required. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Who would like to start?
Well, you know me, but I'll wait my turn.
Oh, okay. You have any questions? Okay, any questions? Okay.
More of a concern. So I love the residential use of this building. I think it would be a great addition, especially with the layouts they've given. But my concern is with the accessory building. It just seems a little too big for the project and the area. And so I think more so not the garages, but the part to the west.
Mhm.
And I know part of it will be trash, but I know also there was discussion of the owner using it for their own commercial storage. And so to me, that doesn't fit with the residential use of the building. So I love the apartments, I love the single garages for the residents, but if the concern is more storage for residents, I'd rather see bigger single garages rather than the large accessory buildings.
So the owner came out, and that was the discussion that, was a point that was pretty pointed at planning commission. So Mark had followed up with the owner, and the owner made it clear too that that was a major part of the proposal in the terms of that there would be some storage done by the owner in that area. And that, from my understanding, is that that's somewhat of a deal breaker on this point. So there was an internal discussion then with staff about how we wanted to proceed with this. And obviously, a conditional use permit is needed for any accessory building. But after looking at the site and looking at what is to be done there, we feel that, yes, we understand there is some storage being done by the owner in that western portion there, but the overall improvement to the site is what has staff presenting it in front of council today. So, I understand, because I think staff in our world too, we'd prefer it if there wasn't any. But given the enhancement to the site, we feel that at this time it's worth still moving forward. But yeah,
And to me,
I
it's
get
less
it.
about the use, and it's more about how big it is, particularly the west side being
Sure.
straight up and down.
Sure.
I mean, visually from the map, it almost looks bigger than the apartment building itself. And so,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just how it's drawn, but to me, it looks
Sure.
visually too big.
Sure.
And maybe I'm nitpicking. Like I said, I love the ideas for the plans for the residential use, but
Yeah.
it seems really too big.
And I think, staff does share some of that understanding. Originally, the attached building was gonna be facing the east side of the property line. And we were like, can we tuck it behind the building? Like anything for visually off of 12 to kinda, to put that back there, but, yeah. No, I understand too.
Bobby, was the applicant invited to come tonight?
Yeah, yep. Yep.
I thought I saw it. I don't know what you meant.
Oh, was he the gentleman who left in the blue sweater?
Yes, yes, that was.
There was a gentleman in a blue sweater who
Yep.
was here for a little while.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
Bobby, on page 4 of Mark's narrative,
Yep.
and I want to get to the specifics of this because I think this is what you were leaning toward, but the last sentence in this paragraph is, the applicant has noted that the use of a portion of the detached accessory structure for warehousing is integral to their ability to renovate the property. Can you explain that?
Yeah, well, I think that there's a business financial decision in which that with having a ability to store some of their, I believe the applicant has a jacuzzi
Mhm.
type business. So really, the storage area I think that they would have there would be tubs of jacuzzi tubs, is my
Okay, that was
understanding.
question
Spa
number 2.
type tubs.
What is his primary business?
And that is his primary business from my understanding. And I think that the ability for him to have that storage component to this allows for him to, obviously that would help his business.
Are you aware if the applicant owns any box trucks?
Too, not to my knowledge.
There was talk at the planning commission that part of that building was intended for storage of trucks and boats,
Sure.
Boats?
possibly.
Yeah, see,
That's what they mentioned at planning.
That was one of my questions.
Sure.
What's gonna be there? Are we renting out storage space to other people? Cause then that's a storage locker. That to me is not an asset to enhance.
yeah, I don't think the intent of it is to be a, a storage locker facility for outside use or for, the residents obviously have an ability to get additional rental space. From my understanding throughout the entire process, it's been more driven towards, jacuzzi tub type storage for his business. That has been the whole kicker here, from my understanding. So-
Because part of the parking plan shows four parking stalls,
In that area. That is correct.
and maybe you can answer it. One is, or the four are 24 by 15.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea in Mark's narrative was that would be to park larger vehicles like pickup trucks.
Sure.
I own a Suburban. It's 19 feet long by 7 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
That's a parking spot for a box truck.
Sure. Sure.
And if there's gonna be, if this is gonna be utilized as storage of jacuzzis and box trucks coming in and moving stuff out and parking box trucks in the parking lot, because that is exactly what I see that as sized as.
Mm-hmm.
Because the 10 by 20, which already exceeds our design standards for
Correct.
parking lots, that will fit a pickup truck or a Suburban. So I would like to know why the 15 by 24?
Yeah.
And maybe we put into the, we get to put the conditions in a conditional use permit. I don't want to see box truck parking in this parking lot. I don't want this
Sure.
being used as a business operation, which I think that is probably the direction
Mm-hmm.
that they're going. And
Sure.
in the 5.5 years that I was on the planning commission and a little over 2 years on the city council, we've had a lot of CUPs come through.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't name one that has been perfect. Every one, we come back a year or two later, whether it's striping of parking lots or number of cars or how they're using it, or that they took occupancy of it before all the conditions were approved. And I don't want to get caught. We're gonna put this one on a short leash.
Yeah, I think so. In the occupancy standpoint, we can't really do anything there because the building exists. I mean, obviously there's a building permit for some of the renovations, but obviously in the resolution and all of our conditional use permits that we offer, there's a review period too in there, and making sure these criteria points are met. And if they're not, then it simply comes back to council and that's revoked.
There was a note in Mark's recommendations that the certificate of occupancy doesn't get submitted until the original CUP was met. That's landscaping,
Yep.
lighting, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Can we make sure that the first thing to go up in this operation is not this pole building?
Sure.
And then, because we already know what happened a
Sure.
couple of years ago.
Yep.
The renovation to the pole building to make the interior of it useful happened, and it got
Yep.
used. But all the landscaping and all the painting and all
Yep.
the other stuff that was part of the conditions never got met, and they're still not completed.
Sure. Sure. Yep. No, that can all be done. That can all be done.
And the only reason I say that is, again, in the years that I spent on the planning commission and here, it is not my position to turn something down just because I don't like it.
Sure.
As long as it meets all the applicable codes and setbacks and things of that nature, we have to inherently do it. But, like I said, we're gonna put a short leash on this one and make sure that everything, the parking lot, I just
Mhm.
drove through it, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know when Stantec's gonna go out and do soil borings or whatever to find out, but
Yeah, and I
I
think.
wanna know what the use of this accessory building's gonna be for, if it's just warehousing.
Yeah. Sure.
We had a manufacturing down on Pioneer a couple of
Mhm.
years ago. That was
Yeah.
a mess.
Yeah. No, I'm aware of that, John. I think I'm understanding the intent of how this is put together, and I think there's a a staff responsibility too to make sure that the criteria that's laid out in the resolution is met by the people. I think there's I think City Council's taken a stance of the last few years that we've been very strong and diligent on trying
That's good.
to meet compliance and
And-
working with businesses to get there. And I don't see this as any other difference than
To
any other
Caitlin's
one.
concern, if I've done my due diligence, the 5-stall garage facility that is necessary as part of the parking plan is about 2,000 square feet. the accessory structure component of it is over 5,000 square feet.
Mhm.
So there's a need for that space for some reason. What is it? Warehousing?
Yeah, I think there's gonna be some, obviously, indoor storage. I mean, that's what it's laid out in the report. Now, specifically, what is all that indoor storage gonna be? I don't know. Indoor storage is indoor storage that way, as long as there isn't, anything being stored illegally in there. It's kinda hard for us to.
I don't want you to have to be a parking lot cop or a CUP cop. I mean,
Yeah.
we
Well,
establish
I
the
think-
rules,
I think
and then
the-
they stick to them.
I think the rule that we have to look here is whether it's just indoor storage or not. You know, you can't, when you start getting into the nit and gritty of what is all being stored inside, I think that's a dangerous road. It's just,
Yeah.
do we permit indoor storage here or do we not? And from my understanding and what Mark has in this report is that, you know, the applicant noted that the use of the portion of the detached accessory structure for warehousing is integral to their ability to renovate the property. So to move forward with the project, they've said they need the
That's fine.
indoor storage.
But what happens when you find a boat in there or a car in there?
Yeah, I guess the question is, I mean, it's still considered indoor storage. So it's, that's the tough part per our code, that's indoor storage. You're storing a boat in there, but still indoor storage. I guess the difference is in how we, you know, specify it is that outdoor storage would be like having your boat in the parking
Oh,
lot.
I understand.
Yeah, so, you know, when it goes to what is classified as indoor specifically, that's not how it's
But
broken down.
But it's gotta be indoor to the applicant, not indoor to neighbors and friends and paying customers and things of that nature. Is that correct?
Correct. So how it has to work is that it's either the applicant themselves that can store materials there, or if one of the, you know, tenants that renting out needs additional storage space, they're able to work out an agreement with the owner. But when it comes to anyone outside, like a storage locker facility or something, that's not permitted in this application.
This is zoned as industrial?
It's zone mixed use Bud
Oh,
District.
mixed use, okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And everything that's proposed meets all the mixed-use requirements, correct?
Yeah. Part of the reason why too, there's a conditional use permit for the, all the setbacks are met here. So no variances are being asked for, the site plan's being asked for because we're changing the use of the primary building from a, you know, commercial office type use to a residential use. And then, also the conditional use permit is being asked because in any of the downtown districts, for a, you know, detached accessory building, you do need a conditional use permit for that to happen. So the detached accessory building does meet our downtown guidelines for the outdoor, how it looks. Those standards are met with that detached building. So.
And it looks like the fire chief is okay with it.
Yeah, we would ask that, you know, obviously, with moving forward, that all standards laid out by the city engineer, planner, and fire chief are met in addition to the stipulations laid out in the resolution for the conditional use permit.
I do share the concerns about the larger outbuilding as well.
Sure.
And that it wouldn't become another business or.
Well, it wouldn't
Aside.
be, it's not permitted as an additional, like, use of the property as an additional business.
I
So that's what's
understand
not
that,
being
but we've seen it, we've
experienced.
seen
that.
similar
One
things
thing
with
and
other
something
CUPs.
Something else
before.
happens.
So unfortunately, that's,
Well, and I think what that ends up leaving us is that, you know, we set out the stipulations here. If they're met, great. If they're not, then we review the conditional use permit entirely at a later date, you know. You know, the fine schedule's laid out too as well, and here we expect compliance, and I think this council has set that tone for the last few years very strongly. And if it's not meeting that, then we'll review that with council.
I
Again.
didn't see in here, you know, no manufacturing, no maintenance, no, I mean, is it just warehouse?
Just storage. That's all that's permitted, yep.
And would we need to add in there something about the box trucks or clarify the size of those lots? Because that is,
Yeah, I think that gets.
I noticed they were larger, I didn't do the math.
It's not for a Suburban or a pickup truck.
Yeah, I think
that is concerning.
I think where it gets tricky though is that is deciphering that from indoor storage. So it's if you're allowing indoor storage, that could be classified as indoor storage, putting a box truck in there over winter.